was a little surprised when I saw your show sheet because I think you and I are the only two people. I think we might be the only two people that are like, oh, Kubalik?
right.
And I think both you and I are like, I like the trade.
Oh, I like the trade. I think it's a good trade.
I really like Dominic Kubalik, and it's not as if it means I wouldn't have made the deal. I'm surprised at how universally praised this trade is as being borderline lopsided, and everybody is saying that Detroit got the better end of this deal, and et cetera, et cetera. And I'm not mad about it. But I feel like it came with sort of a hidden cost. This was a $2 million player, $2.5 million player, gave you 20 goals. And I saw him as part of this new Red Wing depth that I'm fearful that they are paying $6 million-ish more for a player that is going to score more than Kubalik. And I just, the big thing here is returning to the 40-goal plateau that he didn't reach last year in Ottawa. Talking about DeBrincat. So, look, I like the trade, but it's funny. You and I are like, I swear, you and I are the only ones that care about the cost, including Kubalik. And one of the reasons the trade gets praised is because Yzerman didn't give up any of the high-end prospects in the system. Like, we still got them all.
Right.
And that's great if you were right on your draft picks. But maybe this is where hockey crowd just bashes us. I thought Kubalik at $2.5 million was an extraordinarily useful player who's had a good offseason as well.
Yeah. I thought that. I mean, the Wings got 45 points out of him last year. He had 20 goals of the Wings. Played almost every game, 81 games. And then at the end of the season, he plays in the World Championships and has 8 goals in 8 games.
Mm-hmm.
And I like the trade. I like getting DeBrincat in this. I like that he signed for less than $8 million a year. The other thing I'm a little apprehensive about, it's a 4-year deal, which I'm like, okay, I'm glad it's not like an 8-year deal that could be an albatross after a while, but is 4 a little too short? Because you're looking at your window to win, and I mean, in 4 years, going to renegotiate this whole thing. I assume that in 4 years, this team is contending for Stanley Cups. That's my expectation anyway. That you've got time to build this up here, and so we're going to revisit this all over again. I don't know. That's the only other apprehension that I had about it, but it's not a big one. Again, like the trade, I think they got the better of the deal, but all these people that are out there rating this trade, and they're going with the letter C grade for the Ottawa Senators in this. I think they're totally overlooking what Kubalik can be. I mean, he's just a few years removed from having a 30-goal season in Chicago. He's a good player, and he's only 27. He's got plenty of good hockey left in him. I'm asking myself, would I have been better off? Would I feel better about this if they had traded one of their other prospects, like Jonathan Berggren?
Right. I mean, I think Berggren's part of the here and the now moving forward, but I hear you. They are obviously Kubalik, DeBrincat is accelerant, right, to this rebuild.
Yes, he should be.
It is obvious that Steve Yzerman, who hinted and implied like crazy after free agency, the opening round of free agency, that this is the time you circle back because things change. And he and Ottawa and DeBrincat circled back until they got this deal done. And I think people would say, and it sounds like many are saying, that the patience paid dividends for Steve Yzerman. I think you and I are the only ones who are like, oh, the Kubalik part stings a little bit. But you also shouldn't expect to get something for nothing either. I mean,
of course not.
And that's, the deal with this. And so I sit down and I read, and everybody, I'm like, we're like the only ones saying this.
And did we both say it out loud? We did? Okay.
Yeah. But hey, look, the bigger message here sometimes, just the move comes with a message. All right, they're trying to win now. They're trying to win now. They've got stuff that they think it makes them close-ish where when you give up a future first round pick, and it's a first round pick of their choice, one of their two for next year, when you're giving up stuff to make a deal like this, when you're giving up a first round pick, typically you're going for it. Like you're typically going for it if you give up a first round pick for a now player.
Well, yeah, and then you sign that player, and he's only signed for 4 years.
Yeah, and everybody says it's a good value. It's a good value in a contract. So,
but were you at all like doing the same thing about looking both ways? Only 4 years?
I don't mind that. That doesn't bother me. It's interesting you brought that up, and I said, well, there's at least a difference that Gator and I have, because I don't care at all about that. 4 years.
Slightly uncomfortable.
Well, the thing about 4 years is, in the next 4 years, I expect them to really push for the East. And
but that's the thing. That's what the upside of that is the message it tells me as a Red Wing fan and an astute member of the media is that they do expect to be contending during this window. It's a 4-year deal. Things just stepped up big time. This is now I think it's a playoff ready team. At least that's my expectation. Yeah, it's not just DeBrincat. It's all these moves they made prior to DeBrincat, right?
They make a lot more sense now.
Moves that now, as you said, yes, it makes a lot more sense now to look at that. And I think that what's going to take the Red Wings from playoff team to cup contender is going to be the growth of the players that Yzerman has drafted. That, I think, is what the difference is. So watching Lucas Raymond's got to take a big step forward, right? Because it was kind of a lateral step this past season, maybe even a step back, but nothing dramatically moving forward with him. He has to. Mo Seider's been great. Mo Seider can continue to take those strides and be the great defenseman he is. That's awesome. Marco Kasper. Got to hit on Marco Kasper. Yeah. He's got to be a stud. Edvinsson has got to be a stud on the blue line. And these are the players. This is the core, right? And the players that did Danielson and the Swedish player they just drafted. These are the guys that have to be better than good moving forward.
Well, one of the huge variables of how successful all this is going to be is internal growth. An unpredictable variable is, does the internal growth go the way that we want? 248-539-9797. All right, so look, 248, like we said, I just threw out the phone number. Text, calls, how do you feel about the trade? Is there anything that makes you uncomfortable with it? Because Gator and I are both in the same place. We both are happy with the trade, like the trade, a little uncomfortable giving up Kubalik, who, wasn't like a great player, but for $2.5 million to be a 20-goal guy and then go to the World Championships, what was it, 7 goals in 7 games?
8 goals in 8 games.
8 goals in 8 games after the season was done. I mean, there's a lot here. There's a lot here, to have liked about his time in Detroit. Maybe it's made up with the signings they had. I just figured the signings they had plus Kubalik. And one of the things this deal is getting praised for is not breaking up and giving up any of their top prospects.
Yeah.